Hey, this Hangout on Air is live with some of the Peeragogy hardcore who are here even under the medical duress in the case of Charlotte. Foot surgery, bunion surgery, as we were talking about. Anyway, so so we're all getting a good laugh out of that. Thanks, Charlotte. Doug's here, Paula's here, and we may be joined by other people. It's a holiday in Mexico, Revolution Day today, November 16th, so everything's a little bit different, somewhat similar, a little different. I'm going to poke
We're going to be revolving.
and screen share. Yeah, we're evolving. Celebrate Revolution Day, we're evolving.
Revolving.
Just spin. So, anyone who would like to say what they're up to, what's the day about, what's the week about, they can. I'm going to screen share something, so I'm not going to be the first to go. Doug, Paula, anyone? I can't see you, Doug. I can see you in one of your small.
I think we need Paula's angle because we haven't seen much of her lately.
You were away, Paula. You were in Colombia. Tell us about that, if you're willing to. Unless that was just a private.
Yeah, went to a conference, and I'm going to Rio next week.
Wow. This whole horizon's open. So speaking of Rio, that's not the same as these people who, with their website, are planning to publish our thing, though. Rio.
Oh yeah, no, they're not the same. I'm going to go to it's an event of many people in Latin America, and it's about citizen innovation, social innovation.
Whoa. So
yeah.
So we just attended sort of virtually anyway. I'm guessing it was all virtual. This thing in New York of what's this called? Platform cooperatives. Oh my gosh, very exciting. Very similar to social innovation. I think just another piece of the puzzle.
It made me feel like there was a lot of kind of awareness of this out there, you know.
Oh, Ray, we see you, or we hear you. We see a black square.
Yeah, I have. But anyhow, yeah. So I have to conserve bandwidth, but anyhow, I'm here.
Okay, excellent. Welcome. Your audio sounds great. Nice to hear from you. You remember Doug, Paola, and Charlotte?
Sure.
Yeah. So we were just talking about the platform cooperative thing, which I sent you a link. You didn't go. I don't know if any of us went.
Yeah.
Are
referring to those links you sent yesterday, or in the three of them that came in the email?
No, that was for this accelerator. Sorry, there's so much terminology here, and I'll put in the chat this platform cooperative. That was the thing I sent by email a while ago, that conference in New York, but you were in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. This is the one that says platformcoop.net.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah. I was especially thinking, Paula, you might want to have a look at that. They have archived their videos, and pick any random video. It's inspiring. So.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Well, the article, even without it, I might be able to, even if this isn't going on, there still might be people in the new school from this who might be worth knowing.
True. New school. Yeah. So Ray, we specifically invited you today because we wanted to talk about possibly at some point in the near future, next month or two, doing a team up around Planet Math stuff here with these people. So the links you looked at were about the Peeragogy accelerator.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know about that from long before anyway.
Right.
I mean, the obvious question is, okay, I'm here and you're here, but we still might want to ask Diane and Aaron to at least get an idea what their interests are.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And Charlotte, you're also thinking of maybe doing something with the IPNI. So maybe now, if we're pre-planning that, maybe we should just kind of do a compare and contrast. What would the IPNI thing be like? Would you have other people coming, do you think, or?
I think I would have to. I mean, we are an all-volunteer board, and we're changing soon because elections are in December. I'm optimistic about the new board of directors, but I am trying to figure out how to instill a culture of collaboration and cooperation and have that kind of radiate out from the board to the membership so that we're, rhizomatically connected, ideally, and we're all caring about each other and helping lift each other up. I made cooperation as the new competition, or collaboration as the new competition is the theme for IPNY for next year. And Ray, IPNY is the Independent Publishers of New England.
Sure, I gathered. Well, I remember, even though it's been a year, I remember from the last time we talked about it.
When I was still complaining, or started complaining about it. No, I mean, it's been pretty dysfunctional. I did put a little outline of kind of like in a pattern format almost on GitHub. Sort of like the problem, the context, the patterns, and or the my dreams were, and and I think we also need to, and for Planet Math maybe too, have a pitch for people, because the people that I'm going to be depending on to carry out this approach don't really have a clue about peeragogy. They don't. They've seen the book because I've exhibited it at the book shows through IPNY, but
yeah.
So for them, it's just one more book on the shelf.
Probably. I think for a lot of people, it's like one more book on the iPad, and then that they feel good that they've got it on their iPad, but that's where it stops for them.
And even less than that, it's not like what really does well at these book shows is children's picture books.
Okay.
So you're not going to get a lot of attention from people on a concept like this.
Now, this is maybe, this may or may not be relevant, but I was just thinking, as long as we mention, publishers and Planet Math, there is something we have in common, because we've actually been doing a certain amount of, work, or at least planning with a book projects at Planet Math. So at some point we might even want to consider how they intersect.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good to look for those common areas of common interest. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah. And so in terms of the bigger picture of this accelerator and/or Peeragogy University, the theme I have in mind is like, if that basically we're not going to do all of the stuff here that we could do on our own. I mean, we'll do a lot on our own, but if we wanted to make a university, as we've been studying in this paper, Charlotte and I were just adding pictures yesterday, we'd want this and that. And so like Planet Math could be a great mathematics hall. We don't have a science hall, but we could have a mathematics hall. Maybe we'd have someone else as the science hall. And all of these things would kind of be independently organized. But then we could come together as something. So I'm currently really excited about this cooperative model of organization. Not that each member would have to be a co-op, but maybe it could be a co-op of co-ops, or each member could also be a member of this university. It's very, there's lots of different ways you could do it. It could be very centralized. It could be very disparate. You could have a kind of wall around it. The wall could have spikes on it and heads at the top of the spikes. I don't know. We could do whatever we want. Doug would probably not. Of heads at the top of the spikes. He might draw the line there. Onboarding a bit difficult.
Onboarding might be a little difficult.
But we could have different ways of going. But yeah, what would be the common interest would be like, we would have some shared common infrastructure and some shared common skill set. But I think
and between Planet Math and IPNY would be. I'm just trying to sort out the semantics of cooperation and collaboration. But between those two, it would be cooperation, and then, like within IPNY, it would be collaboration, right? Or
that sounds like a good idea.
Well, for example, one thing I'm seeing, just let me give you an example of what I had in mind is, one of the things that we've been working on Planet Math were, collecting book indices and things with them. So I could see that, we might be able to apply some of the software we built for cross-indexing books and combining their indices to books that you publish.
Mm-hmm.
Or we've been looking at scanning in public domain works. So you might, for example, let's say we scanned in let's say we have, a few hundred math books that are ready to do it. If someone wants a hard copy, then maybe we could, one of your publishers might be interested in reprinting some of them.
Yeah, and
you generate.
there's Charlie has his PubDom Ed, and I have Peeragogy Books, which is one of my imprints for my publishing company. And but I like that. I could take on some of those for the Peeragogy Books imprint.
It would be great. Again, this matches. Yes, it matches our reduce, reuse, recycle pattern again, because we were thinking about how to build a great library. Although this library has only got a urinal in it for art to show. Let's see. I'm gonna stop and share the other one. There. Yeah, reduce, reuse, recycle. I don't know if it's big enough to see it though. So yeah, I should actually stop this. This one's a bit distracting. Here's another library. So we have all got these patterns, but I think that let's look at the accelerator list again.
I'm gonna drop off for a second. I've got to get my dog in from the backyard.
Okay, no problem. So indeed, I think that the first challenge in our case would be like supposing that we have Erin and Ray, or supposing that Charlotte has some of her board members. I guess it'd be like a board. Are they willing to show up?
What is the, just not to get too granular about things and rubbery meets the roadie type of stuff, but what is there's a yin and yang to this. What's the value offer that Peeragogy Accelerator represents to the object of affection, be it IPNI or Planet Math? What is the focus, goal, agenda of, or what's, conversely, what is the service/value offer Peeragogy Accelerator is putting on the table relative to both of those, specifically, concretely?
Okay, so are those I'm sure, am I not? Are you saying these two opposite things? I think you said the same thing two different ways, but I'll answer one of them. Let's come back to the other one. So
okay.
So what's the service that we offer? I think that the service is, on the one hand, if I understand these hands together, is that we would go through these. We basically spend a month going through these things with kind of Peeragogy or Planet Math as like an honored guest. So today Ray is our honored guest, but for an entire month, if we started up Planet Math, say, or IPNI would be an honored guest. Week one, we would sort of talk about this homework problem. What's the initial challenge? What's the framework for accountability among the participants in Planet Math? So it might be four of us would be showing up every week for a month, and that would be the main thing. We'd agree to do an hour of homework a day or something like that.
Hold, can I stop you one sec?
Yeah.
So week one, you said, what is the challenge? And then you sort of immediately went to accountability.
Right.
Accountability is going to be driven by the sort of chemical reaction between the challenge on the table and the potential value of the value add that we're bringing to solving that over 30 days, right? So the pull that collaborating with us is generating has to be somehow instantiated in the value we're bringing to Planet Math, for example.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering how much of the value isn't simply the fact that the other participants are there. For example, a simple example might be the potentials for collaboration that I mentioned 5 minutes ago. Or in the case of this, I could see, let's say, if we're looking at accountability in Planet Math, then maybe one value might be that, let's say, the Publisher Association or someone else has said, oh yeah, this reminds me of a situation here that we went through, and based on that might give some useful advice.
So in that model, in that example, the value exchange is actually Planet Math relative to Independent Publishers of New England, or vice versa. Peeragogy is serving a brokerage function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think. Let's take a step. Well, I'm eager to jump to week 2 just to get on.
Okay.
But I want. There's only 4 of these weeks, obviously. So, indeed, this is related to the one we were just talking about. But I think that what we're talking about here is not radically different from what you would find in another accelerator or incubator project, like Y Combinator is probably the most famous one. They get smart people who have computer projects there, and they do it in cycles. They bring, I don't know, 10 or 12 of those projects together for a quarter of the year, and they give them space, and they give them money. So that's the one thing we're not doing. But we would do like a sort of scaled down version of one of these other things, where instead of offering money, we would offer free advice and this kind of networking stuff. And for what it's worth, it may not be worth a whole lot. It's certainly not worth as much as like getting a huge amount of money and all that. But there would be no equity loss either. So let me jump up to the other side of what I think you were maybe asking about. Hi, newcomers. The other thing I was getting at was like, why would the Peeragogy project even bother to do this? And then there's 2 answers. One is the kind of rhizomatic growing of Peeragogy, like we were talking about, like, oh, well, we might then have a sort of loose affiliation with a mathematics department, should we ever want that. And then the other one is continued debugging of this process. So this process, as you've talked about several times, well, maybe not this process, but a process is one that we could go through with other folks. So maybe this week it's Planet Math, next week it's IPNY, week 3 it's Shell or something. I mean, maybe not Shell, but you see what I'm saying. It's like, and if there's a pay what you can, yeah, I think Charlotte's saying in the chat, $500, maybe pay what you can. Planet Math is broke, so I think pay what you can there is little. There could also be a cash value on that side.
Okay, so I'm now a little bit confused. So let me roll the tape back a little bit. So is it 30 days Peeragogy meets Planet Math? Is it 30 days a new object of affection honored guest per week? And the Y Combinator example, I'm not sure. I mean, my orientation and frame of reference for accelerators in the VC sort of space is that it's very much a focus of resources and people and expertise and guidance and whatever on a particular venture in service to a particular new undertaking, right? So it's the accelerator concept is very much a entity-centric kind of model. There may be complementarity with other people in the accelerator pot, but usually that's not, that's not the primary driver. It's money, office space, resources, and expertise usually. So in the context of this, 30 days as it is sort of a really clearly defined window. I'm not sure, I think 30 days on a programmatic basis focused on IPNY, and week 1, what's the scope and dimension of challenges, goals, whatever that Charlotte as rep of IPNY is putting on the table, and then maybe week 1 is also figuring out what pieces of that elephant assembled people on the Peeragogy side of the table might be able to provide to help, address some of it, all of it, or part of it. Week 2, according to the screen share you just did, seemed to be focused on team or resources being brought to bear. Is that your sort of vision, Joe? Did we lose Joe?
No, you didn't. I just.
Oh, okay.
I was talking muted. I'm here. I'm just trying to remember what we said here. You have to read the fine print, but it says here. I think this is the idea was. The idea is also that you could run this syllabus on your own. So this is something you can take home and do. Planet Math could just take this home and do it without our support. They'd say, who else do we need on board? And so then the thought is maybe by week 3, some of these extra new people would be coming along. But indeed, it's team building, networking, supported networking. So we might say, oh, you really absolutely need to talk to someone else, the open source learning people or something like that. But so yes, it's team building, but not just team building within the team networking. Let's look at this third one. That is only 4. We'll have it all on the table.
Okay.
So solidifying your work plan and learning strategy together with concrete measures for success can move the project forward significantly. So let's switch examples just because I'm thinking, supposing Paula goes to this conference in Rio, and she finds that there's a really interesting project there, but she feels that their objectives are a bit vague. So she'll say, "This is really interesting, but what are you looking for to make this project a success?" Or in the Planet Math case, it's like we maybe even tried this once with Planet Math. It's like, what are we aiming for? Are we aiming for a bunch of new signups, some new money coming in? Are we aiming for more mathematics objects online? And like, can we even define a clear goal?
So week 3 is basically dimensionalizing and brainstorming the challenge, the question, the undertaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me tell you a little bit about this meeting in Rio, because this meeting is precisely a 2-week workshop where people from around Latin America gather to, they call it, to prototype their projects.
Yeah.
First, this organization, they make an open call for projects in Latin America, and then they choose 10 projects, and after that they open this call for collaborators, and then they gather 10 and they choose 10 collaborators for each project. So this 2-week meeting is a place where these people with the person that proposed the project gathers with these 10 collaborators to make the project function or work. So it's a 2-week process.
So that's 2 weeks, 5 days a week. That's how many hours a day?
5 days a week. Yeah, all together.
Yeah. But it's clearly, in Doug's language, they have a lot of pull. They've not only found 10 projects, they've found 10 people, 10 outside collaborators per project, and it sounds like it's getting off the ground, and it's actually running. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, let me share with you the link. I'm going to share you.
I was also wondering what, I want to ask the same question that was asked about for us. In the case of this Latin American thing you mentioned, what do they provide to the projects? I mean, as in let's say we knew that Combinator, for example, provides funding. Do they also provide some sort of resources?
Well, yes, they provide funding because they pay this person who was selected with the project. They pay the ticket and hotel and meals, and for the collaborators, they pay the meals and the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but is there anything? Okay, but that's just for that kind of club. But there aren't any extra costs like the investment in the project, or
no?
It's just okay
because the project should be self-sustainable.
Oh, okay.
So it has to generate its own pull.
Yeah.
In terms of funding, in terms of next steps, in terms of
they only provide the place and the opportunity to be together and work on that project together. They provide people who help them, facilitators, to help them go further and
And these are all sort of, projects that are, this is the beginning, this is origination, one-page proposal,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
5,000 submitted, 10 chosen, and so
How many are
it's basically a first step aggregation of attentional energy and focus
Yes.
to take them to
Yes.
the next step. So
Yes.
after 2 weeks, is there a defined sort of set of achievables benchmarks that they're
Oh,
expected to produce?
well, no, they just have to present like the results of the 2-week workshop, and then they go back to their places, and that's it.
So, but in principle, they could, depending upon what they do with the 2 weeks and the team assembled, they could go back with a business plan, a funding plan, an implementation
Yes.
strategy,
Uh-huh.
all of the ingredients to make soup, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's it.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to find
It's kind of like Y Combinator without money, and we're like Y Combinator without money or a hotel. So it's like, what's the minimal thinnest broth you could have that could be called soup? I guess.
Well, hold on a second there. Not
Okay.
so fast.
Okay, fine.
So I want to challenge the implicit judgment in that response, because it's a judgment legitimately born and derived of the industrial age, fiat currency, finance-centric universe we've been in, but it has no correlation to the world we now live in and what's required and called for us to survive into the future. So if you don't place the center value attachment on money as the thing that is the most valuable thing going on, you place the focus on the attentional world and economy we now live in, where attention is actually the value. Okay? What we have in principle is a premise that says a peeragogy accelerator is aggregation of at least our initial team, but there's a rather extended network that we could reach out to and solicit involvement from if we had an appropriately defined focus of attention that would give them a reason for why we're reaching out to them and whether they, on a self-assessed basis, can bring value to the effort, right? So we have a 0 to n possibility of human resource, people, connections, expertise, etc., to bring to bear that maps to the Peeragogy mailing list / community. Okay? Now I'm going to use me as an example.
Okay.
For illustration purposes, but my billing rate and value is $350 an hour. So if I sit down and I spend, there are 4 Hangouts plus asynchronous and additional scheduled synchronous activities, times, and whatever over the course of 30 days. Okay, I'm bringing potentially, let's conservatively say $5,000 to $10,000 worth of time that I'm putting in. Now, the criteria for me doing that isn't based on return. It's not based on what am I getting paid. But there is a value translation to every single person here. I've invoked Charlotte's name probably a dozen times in the last 6 months for the community that she runs, but also for the instantiated resource base that community represents in terms of expertise and knowledge about independent publishing. It's probably unqualifiedly one of the top pools of aggregated knowledge and talent and expertise out there of its kind. And Charlotte,
what do you mean by instantiated?
Okay, your membership base's array of publishing entities and experiences and knowledge about independent publishing, about production of books, about editorial relation to books, about aggregating books, about promoting and social media and e-publishing and on and on and on and on and on. That is a tremendously valuable pool of expertise and knowledge.
I get that, but I wondered what the word instantiated means.
Well, because your organization, that's what comprises your organization. Your organization equals that. It's the aggregate total of all of that experience and knowledge.
Yeah, I get that, Doug. This very small point that I'm making. I'm wondering what you mean by the word instantiated. Is it instance what is it?
No, that it's a present value. It's a human value, asset value.
What is the root of the word?
Oh, you mean the word instantiate itself?
Yes, the word instantiated itself.
To be present and infused throughout.
But what's the root of it? Is it like instant or what?
What's the I don't know what it's derived from. I have no idea.
So it means in say computer in computer science it would mean creating an instance, creating an example.
Okay, got it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So that represents, we're now drifting into the meat and potatoes of IPNI, right? But the IPNI Accelerator project is you have that. How could you capitalize on that? Really big time capitalize on that.
How could IPNI capitalize on it?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
right.
In my mind, that's the great untapped resource IPNI represents.
Right, and you keep in mind that it's going to be important for the accelerator people to know who the 200 members of IPNI are, which are primarily independent authors, like maybe 60% independent authors, solo authors who are publishing their own books, and maybe 25% small publishers of publishing other people's books and more than one, and 25% vendors to the industry, so printers, designers, and that kind of group.
And the fact that this organization exists, the fact that those numbers are what they are, and that target membership, that aggregated membership is so highly qualified in what it does and what it's focused on in terms of publishing. That's a really valuable thing.
That's good. I think.
Yeah, let me just say that certainly I happily accept that pushback on the thing a few minutes ago. So I happily and IPNI makes the case quite well because it's a real coherent thing with 200 members. The value that Planet Math brings is maybe more ephemeral in some ways, but we've put in one master's thesis, one PhD thesis, and at one time there's like 10,000 members of the organization, not as active or professional as these. Professionally engaged as these 200, but many of them are mathematicians. Some of them are top mathematicians. So there's certainly a bunch of
listen, Joe. I can do the same pitch. I can do the same sales, distillate for Planet Math.
Yeah, no.
Its value is instantiated. Charlotte, now hopefully you can relate to it. It's instantiated in all those people, all those contacts and touch points. It's aggregated over how long? How long have you been at Planet Math?
Well, Planet Math started in 2001.
Okay, so we're talking about a lot of time and aggregate attention and center of gravity and exerted pull for it to still be in existence, for it to still be here, and for you to have these lists and these extrapolated human extensions from it, however active or inactive they may be, right? So
I think one thing that distinguishes, well, I mean, Planet Math probably shares this, but IPNI is about the same age, and IPNI started before the technology really empowered all these people to do what they started about the time that was beginning to become possible to publish your own books or to publish them a large portion of the way. So, but so those people recognized that there was a need for the organization, and then they, I'm sorry, I got my screen share. Then they, kind of, I mean, some of them stopped there and weren't able to kind of ride the rapidly changing technology. If I think Moore's law is the example here, where it's just like 1 month it's one way, and then the next month it's 10 times beyond that. But so there's been a lot of change, and there continues to be a lot of change, and it's a radical shift from the way it was 15 or 20, at least 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So I think Planet Math probably has gone through some of that too, but maybe not as much.
As we've observed over the years more and more, a lot of the stuff that Planet Math was maybe once the only place to do, there's now other places you can do some of those things. Many of them you can do better. I'm going to, not to change the topic, just so we get it all on one page, I'm going to jump ahead to week 4, which you maybe guessed what was coming anyway, and then we can talk about it all at one pitch. So week 4, wrap up the project with a critical assessment of progress and directions for future work. Share any changes to this syllabus you think would be useful for future peeragogues. So week 4 is the share back, similar to what Paola was saying with the get up and present what you were doing over the 2 weeks. In this case, it's 4 weeks. Share back, and then here, ideally, for example, they'd share a micro case study. So here's the Peeragogy project year 1 as a case study. Here's year 2 as an even shorter case study, and year 3 as a case study with a reference. So maybe we would have something like Planet Math, the first month of our new way of doing things, or IPNI, the first month of our first way of doing things, as a future thing. So this I think this could be critiqued a lot. Is it even useful for us? I'm not sure. But there it is, and all the bits of it are on the table now. So if you want, I can keep it up and we can hop around, or we can switch topics.
I'm wondering about the timing on this. I was thinking that at least for IPNI, it might work better if we did one session a month for 4 months. Just so that, and then check in between with different members of the accelerator or something like that, so that people whose lives are already compressed are not going to feel more obligated to spend.
Yeah, that would have some benefits too, that it wouldn't take over the entire conversation here, and we'd have some time to think about it.
Well, it also said, right, even in the handbook itself, that it, had that it was the more important, the point was have 4 sessions, and 4 weeks was just an example of a schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think at first we tried to spread it out over 6 weeks, and doing multiple projects at once, it was incredibly confusing. So,
yeah, I mean, that was the problem with the lots of different projects.
Yeah. So maybe now is a good time, though, that we've got it all on the table, to just let other people like Laura and Lisa and Karen, who joined us, and Charlie was here and's gone. If you want to speak up to express completely different concerns, feedback about this, anything, we'd like to turn the floor over to you. How's it going?
So this is Lisa. And can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I made a note in the comment section. I was just thinking that in laying it out week by week, we might be falling into a little bit of a trap in our thinking. In that we may want to lay out the roadmap but not lay it out by time, because with peeragogy and any sort of creative exercises, we're challenging not only the structure of how people report and interact between each other, but it also challenges the idea that you can lay this out week by week. So, we may want to lay out general milestones. I worked on projects where if you have 4 weeks to do something, you might spend 3 weeks just having everybody come to terms with what you're trying to accomplish. Once everybody's on board, execution's fast. There's other times where you may spend 1 day working on something, and then the rest of the time is doing something else. So it might be just a suggestion of, here's what you really want to focus on to make sure you're started on the right foot, and making sure everybody's on the same page with the goal and what that looks like, because that's really critical. And then after that, here's probably milestones or things you're going to have to go through in a very general way to get there. And that's just a thought.
That is a very awesome thought. Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's this if in a way you've brought us up to date from like 2 years ago when we wrote this week by week plan all the way up to the pattern catalog, where it's much more distributed. And the stuff we've been doing with Doug and the protocols and the onboarding projects, which are like the last couple weeks, are an attempt to even more ground those patterns, well, not those patterns, but ground the stuff that we've abstracted in the patterns in really practical, nitty-gritty things that we use every day. So if we can say to people, not just here are the ingredients and the ingredients are people, but here are processes whereby you can use those ingredients, here's how we do it, then we really teach people how to fish, I guess, to use a metaphor I was sharing with Charlotte before. So, okay. Laura, what are you saying here? You can say it if you want to.
I was just saying that I think Lisa's got it exactly. Very important things, and that the talking sessions, like these sessions, are when you debate ideas and work out what ideas you actually have and how they flesh out, and the implementation happens separately. And like Joe, like you were saying, actually people could take away what's written down and do it themselves. Yes, they could, but the whole point of the sessions, as Charlotte said, is you check in. You check in and you say, are you on the right track? And basically it goes back to Doug's metacognition. It's externalizing the processes so that you can see what are you doing, how have you done them, how might you go on. That's what happens in the discussions, I think. Maybe. But I agree completely with taking out time, because the idea of time is both constraining and could be terrifying for people. And also it may limit who comes to do something.
Yeah.
Lisa, it's what's interesting about also taking out time, and I absolutely agree with you. It's sort of it's an artificial construct to begin with, and then we impose it on ourselves. It's like putting this gun to our own heads. But the flip side of that is if you don't use time in the way that it's traditionally used, which speaks to sort of the deadline, delivery, structure, accountability meme, which in an industrial frame time makes all the sense in the world. If we're getting rid of that for that purpose, what is the replacement mechanism for sort of tracking and keeping on top of and coordinating, not as a motivational or deadline device, which is sort of compulsory, but on a voluntary basis? What's a mechanism and device that energizes folks in their engagement and delivery and productivity in the context of whatever the immediate goal on the table is? Because the human being dimension of this, and why it's so challenging when you really cut loose from the industrial anchors, is the risk is that people, for lack of those things, sort of evaporate or devolve, right? That there's a natural tendency to co-conspire not to do, as opposed to a tendency to co-conspire to do.
Well, I think one obvious answer is you could still have, as was mentioned earlier, a list of an agenda or milestones, or we want to call it, without necessarily attaching the dates to it ahead of time. So you could still follow, the progress, just you don't have a specified date for each step.
And I also, you have to think about the two parties in the project: the Peeragogy Accelerator participants and the IPNI members or the Planet Math members. There may be overlap, but I think as the people who are initiating this, until people start coming to us and asking us to do it for them because they are so motivated to do it by the results that we've been producing, I think that we take it upon ourselves as a organization, if you will, to monitor that, and like Ray said, have those benchmarks, and kind of like the I always think of the radar, the airport radar. It's just scanning. Every time it goes around the 360, it picks up another
That's great. Yeah.
Point that, and whoever it activates the person in the accelerator who is either responsible or claims responsibility for it.
So can I jump in with something, another really interesting thing relative to something that Karen was saying, and about us as a group is like so we say in the handbook, if you read it so try sometime, pick up the handbook and read it from this perspective. You're trying to interest someone who's already doing collaborations, but they do them in person. So I met these people at the Project Cafe in Glasgow. What it says in the handbook is, oh, we're all about technology, 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 technology. And once you get through the layers and layers of technology, then you find education. And you're like, oh my God, technology and education. And you're like, okay, then you dig through, if you were willing, and most people would have stopped with the technology, dig through the education, then you say, okay, it's collaboration. And then there's like a couple paragraphs about that. And it's like, that's what it says in the handbook. I think what we actually do is not that. We don't sit here debugging code, usually. We don't sit here, I mean, sometimes we've helped each other debug classes, but like actually we're trying to debug collaboration. So I feel like we're missing a trick with the book, and about 2/3 of it, at minimum, should just be condensed into a nice nugget. Technology, awesome.
What? That phrase, debugging collaboration, should make it into the book, maybe as a chapter heading.
I like that. Yeah, debugging collaboration.
So and I think we could pitch it to these people, by the way, in Glasgow. I am going to invite them to write a chapter, and I think it will probably blow us all collectively out of the water, because we'll say, wow, they have all these resources, they can meet in person. But of course, we've been kind of tempered to that because of like Laura and Paola and other people who do collaboration in person with people. But a lot of us do a lot of stuff online, and Planet Math is all online, and IPNI is geographical, but you know, it's not like you're seeing these people every day.
No.
Maybe you're glad that you're not, but but you know, that's a whole dimension to this. That what keeps us coming back is not the fact that we enjoy being together in person. It's something almost like that, but a little bit different from the in-person.
It's the hats.
Yes, it's the hat. Where's my hat? I need my hat right now.
Laura,
Is the hat buzzing?
I need your address, Laura.
I sent you a message.
Oh, good.
On Google Plus.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so where do we go from here, I guess, is another good question to ask at this point in the agenda. I know Paola goes to Rio, where she'll see how it's really done by people there. But where do we go collectively, maybe once you're back? How shall we progress?
Paola.
I'm sorry, I was reading the comments. Well, I was asking a question. I was asking a question in the chat because Lisa is saying that maybe the handbook should be about the science of collaboration in learning and organizations. And I was asking, are we trying to develop a methodology of or for cooperation? Because sometimes I've been thinking, are we talking about a theory, but we are not talking about a theory. We are trying to develop these patterns of doing things or things that we have found. But I'm thinking that it's more like a method. I don't know if we should think about how to name this more explicitly. Maybe this comment about that we are focusing on technology precisely gives us a sense of what we are showing others with the handbook.
So it has been suggested that book, at least one fork of it, be spun off into a pattern kind of book.
So probably, I don't know. I was thinking that maybe we haven't developed a pattern or talked about the processes of producing things together, or peer project production. Because, for example, this, of course, we are meeting every Monday, but we have done many things together, and those things have not been recorded by the handbook. For example, the ways that we gather together to talk, but also to work on a specific document, or to define the roadmap, or to, I don't know, to try to think together about your project or everyone's project. So those things that are very important about peer production and about how to work together and make things together, I think they're missing in the handbook.
Or go ahead, Doug.
That's sort of where I was going with the concept of protocols.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there's actually a gold mine of protocols that have manifest over the course of the Peeragogy project that have never been extracted and codified. It's like, how do you do this? And it can be as mechanics oriented as how do you launch a Hangout on air. I finally got tired of talking people through it and did a PowerPoint deck, with screen grabs and instructions and thought bubbles and arrows and stuff. So developing, first of all, there's a protocols level of it, which is here's the nitty-gritty mechanics of this. And there are protocols that have to do with the mechanics of opening a Hangout on air. There are also protocols that have to do with this soft stuff. Like Peeragogy Accelerator, what is that? So we're going to take a victim, let's pick IPNI, and we're going to put it on the table, and we're going to initiate a process. And that process is we're going to look to provide IPNI with a sort of a collective and collaborative resource that in one way, shape, form, or another is going to help Charlotte in running that organization and her board figure out how to take it to next steps or next level based on what their wishes are, right? And the hacking of collaboration, the sort of redefinition of what collaboration is and how you do that in a 3.0 way, half of it is protocols, is mechanics, like regular meetings, what are the setups in Google Apps that are needed on a project management basis for shared resources, and how do people put things into them and take things out, and how do you set up the collaborative privileges and rights so everybody can access everything. And there's all of that mechanical stuff. I think that's one layer. Mm-hmm. And then there's another layer, which is what's the actual practice and protocol and approach. And there's another dimension of it, which is the sort of unprotocol. It's the unlearning part. Like when Elisa pops up and goes, the time thing, that's like a really, that's really a legacy dimension that, we don't need to bring here. Like we don't need to import that. That doesn't serve this. And that, I put that in the column of unlearning, right? Yeah. Because it's so reflexive that people conflate time with deadline as opposed to time with process. Mm-hmm. So our meeting every Monday doesn't mean we're setting a deadline for when a particular thing has to be done by. The goal is to have the energy and attentional investment going on so that it's always moving forward, whatever its timeline is.
To deconstruct that, I kind of think that maybe I wasn't the one who started it, but I said, what if we did it over a longer period of time so that people don't feel like they're overwhelmed by their deadlines. And then Lisa was percolating off in the distance and came up with the encapsulation of it and the articulation of it, which was great.
Yeah, when you were first saying it, I saw that as a way to accommodate their schedule, their busy people, but
Right.
I didn't make the connection to like the way we already do things. We're also busy people, so
Yeah, but we're busy people, yet we come here every Monday because we love to. It's like, or I do. I mean, it's great. I make time for it. So, yeah, she really. I didn't even know that's what I was heading for, or what we were heading for.
Interesting. Well, okay, so we are coming to the end of the hour. I think it's been fruitful. Ray, thanks for joining us. We used IPNY as a case study even more than Planet Math, but I think just to recap myself thinking with the Planet Math hat, I mean, Ray and I often have had the schedule of meeting once a week on Saturdays ourselves, or Tuesdays sometimes it was, so we were keeping a Planet Math thing going, which is in more recent months we got busy and that schedule has fallen off. I mean, Planet Math, whatever you're doing in IPNY, I would love to learn more about that and get into the stride of it more, Charlotte, because you have these, you have a lot of advantages, I think. Planet Math has, as you guys are saying, it has some advantages, but I think some of those are hidden and a bit varied as, I'm trying to
I'd also like to
research.
To commit to the Planet Math thing as a way of testing whether I have learned something through the Peeragogy project that can.
So maybe what we should do is maybe take it away, Ray, between the two of us, and just think on the basis of this, like, what would be our preferred thing? Would we want to do it in a month? Would we require that Ray and Diane show up? Is it something that we could do on every so often on a Monday, just check in and say, hey, we'd like some advice about Planet Math, and just speak up about that? Is that syllabus that I sent around, is it accurate, or are those just the wrong questions? I mean, if we take a week to answer those and tailor our own thing and come back again, we might have some good ideas. Go ahead.
Well, one thing, for example, is, mentioning that schedule, as we said, okay, now it has, 4 large goals. So then one obvious question was whether it would make sense to try to, maybe break some of that down to the point, so that let's say if we don't necessarily run it through a fixed schedule, that under what points 1, 2, 3, 4, you might have 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and so on, which might have to be individualized for each instance, so that Planet Math or whoever at its own time might better work through them, because they'd have a little more guidance than just 4 broad goals. Or the idea might be maybe when you meet with the 4 goals, the first thing you do is break them down into what is the sort of sub-schedule for each of these.
Well, if I can throw another curve at you as the Planet Math end of this, right, wearing those hats. For years, I would get retained, and what my skill and talent is with relatively little input and source data and elements and a vision statement, I can extrapolate 5 years out grandest possible vision. Okay, meaning at an unlimited, starting from the premise of unlimited scale, what could this project turn into? What's its greatest possible manifestation? That doesn't mean the people involved are interested in the greatest possible manifestation. And I can remember doing that for folks and putting it in their hands and them reading it and literally shitting their pants. Like, it scared the hell out of them because they had no idea that's what they were creating the potential for. Mm-hmm. And on a personal level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, it wasn't what they were interested in. If somebody's interested in running a mom and pop, you don't present them with how to create $1 billion company. Okay? So the part of this, and Ray, the trap is to get project-oriented before you are human-oriented. And so really the first step, and Charlotte, this applies to you with IPNY as well, right, is, heart of heart, mind of minds. what do you guys want for Planet Math, and what do you personally want in Planet Math for yourselves?
Mhm.
And Charlotte, what do you want for IPNY? And what's your personal / greatest aspiration, interest, goal, agenda? Then what's the board of directors and the organizations? And then you can extrapolate to the membership if you even want to go that far.
Yep.
So, and dialing in a common understanding, awareness, appreciation for both of those dimensions
Right.
is really critical out of the box before you start rolling up your sleeves and figuring things out.
Yeah,
Actually, I do
yeah.
agree with you on that. And in fact, I might want to mention that, by the way, about 8 years ago, Planet Math, actually, we went to did a certain thing with an outside consultant where most of it was exactly discussing the sort of points that you raised. And since it's been a while, we probably wouldn't be bad to do that again.
Yeah, and I think it is true that the follow-up to that, maybe 3 or 4 years later, was probably just you and me sitting in Cambridge, Massachusetts, not so far from where Karen is now, probably, hashing that over amongst ourselves. And I think that the vision, it's really interesting, the discrepancy between vision, which, believe me, I've had some pretty great ones, and traction or something, the other people who share it, as you're saying. So, like, you may be running around being the person who's happy with the vision in a world of mom and pops, so to speak, who aren't that.
Absolutely. And if those things are out of alignment, it will not happen.
Sure.
It will not happen.
That's right. Well, see, I guess I would say one interesting thing about one difference of Planet Math between then and now is now that it's sort of shrunk to a certain core of people, it might be easier. It might be a point where you could say, okay, what is do the four of us still agree in this vision? And if so, then start building up, more people based on the vision rather than starting with something that grew without, grew by itself, and then figuring out is there a common, consensus after the fact.
Yeah, and I think that this is true, and I also think that at the very least, Planet Math is an somewhat interesting case study for us, certainly for those of us who've done both Planet Math and Peeragogy. But it's like we could see the same thing happening for Peeragogy in 10 or 20 years. How long has Planet Math been going? A long time, 10, 15 years. So it's like in 10 years, where do we see this Peeragogy project going? Do we want to build a large community which then evaporates? Do we want to build a larger group than even what we are? Maybe this is all it is, and it's like a Howard Rheingold University alumni, circle that's tight and meets often or something like that, which is kind of what we are. I don't know, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to figure all of it out. But I'm one thing I want to just jump in on about over this weekend. I felt things are really clicking around this platform cooperative thing, because it's like those are also just protocols, right? We didn't write them, but we just say go through this hoop and you have a nonprofit, go through that hoop and you have a university. It's like it's just doing stuff. I don't know how long it takes, I don't know what you got to do, but the fact is it's just very mechanical stuff. So if we want one of those things, then we can just target it and do it, so that felt encouraging to me, at least that much did. Okay, any other comments from anyone else before we say goodbye?
Well, I just watched a TED talk in my convalescence here about what does it take to learn something. I can't remember the guy's name, but
That's a bad thing.
I did not learn his name. Well, search TEDx 20 hours and to learn something. Anyway, it was based on the takes 10,000 hours to master something, but that's like mastering it at a level like way
Joshua
above.
Kaufman, I think he might be a cousin of mine.
It could be.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. Anyway, and he says no, it takes 20 hours, and then you get to the point where you can actually start self-correcting. So, I think what I'm really impatient to do is really apply what we've sort of been talking about in Peeragogy and apply it in some other situations where we can test it out.
Well, how about IPNY? How about Planet Math? I mean, let's put them on the operating table and see what happens.
Yeah, it might be nice to just have one, just for security and safety numbers, it might be nice to think about getting one more queued up, just so that we have amongst ourselves a certain sense that, like, okay, here's a process, here's a population. It's not all going to work perfect. It's going to be different in each case, but if we have a population, so I put that out there.
Well, I have a build. I have an agenda that Peeragogy is the place that I'm hoping to execute it. Which is, I would really like to flesh out the whole metacognition, collective metacognition, or group metacognition meme. In terms of protocols, in terms of platform and technology, and the facilitation bed that supports Collaboration 3.0. So this is the place I'm hoping that I can breathe some life into that, and I could use help. And I have absolutely no problem putting that on the table as a project with a capital P.
Will it require onboarding?
It'll require defining and figuring out what onboarding is. Yeah, absolutely. It'll require me onboarding all of you in terms of the 4 years of stewing and thinking and notes I've been generating around it. So yeah, it will.
I'm on board.
As another possibility, Joe, have you heard lately from Wouter and Fabrizio? Because it seems like their organization might be someone to invite.
Yeah, well, Wouter might be. Fabrizio might be. I mean, he's drifted in and out of the Peeragogy project, sort of circling like a satellite. Wouter, not so much. Yeah, that was this thing in Barcelona. What's it called? The Free Technology Academy. So that again, I don't know where that's at. I don't know where that's at right now. But we could ping him. This would be another layer of things, like who would we want to reach out to bring in. I'm really keen to bring in this Project Cafe people from Glasgow, because they're doing something so something so different from Wouter. There's no technology. It's all human stuff and soft skills. But that's not to say that the next one couldn't be technology, and just kind of layer it up there.
Well, and as we said, our thing isn't necessarily about technology anyway, so
yeah,
or at least not electronic technology as opposed to social technology.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, someone left. Laura left. Okay, well that's sad. People sometimes have to leave. I guess it's time. Enjoy the rest of the holiday, Paula, and enjoy the conference.
Thank you.
Great. Let me know how that all works out. It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Like what we want to do, so it'll be good research.
Yeah, Viva Revolution.
Yes. The Peeragogy Revolution. Soon they'll have
Peeragogy Revolution. Yeah.
I'm gonna start.
Slow revolution. Yeah.
I'm going to start revolving right now.
Okay. Too fast.
Great. Good to see you, as always.
Revolving door.
Yeah. Okay. Nice to see you as always. And yeah, we maybe should do another quick check-in about patterns, but it doesn't have to be today. We'll do that as the week goes by. I'll send out.
Have you hardened up a time for the first formal accelerator session?
They're on the calendar, Doug.
No, I think the answer is no. If anyone's asking, the answer is always no.
I mean, the last message I saw was trying to dial in a time. So
we do have a Peeragogy calendar.
Yeah, but
we've been trying to kind of merge the spreadsheet, the Rosetta Stone thing, onto it.
Yeah, how's that going?
Pretty good. It sort of failed today, but the calendar is working. Do you know where it is, Doug?
Probably not, but I can check.
If you look on your Google Calendar, you'll probably have one. You'll probably have a calendar for it.
Okay.
For Peeragogy project.
I remember a notice and activating one in my Google Calendar, so I'll pull it up and see.
Okay, but if the spreadsheet is merged, that's even better, because that thing is awesome.
Yeah, it's getting there. There's still some problems.
Okay, but getting there is good. Okay, yeah, I think there's a lot.
We've also been having a Sunday thing, like Joe and I did, kind of a Sunday afternoon thing.
That was ad hoc. I think that we should probably try to remember as like a pre-wrapper event or something to at least show that spreadsheet or something like every once in a while, just so people get a sense in these meetings where it's at and all on one page, or the calendar, a picture of the calendar.
Well, there was the tentative for the first accelerator session, whichever honored guest is selected, was tentatively Wednesday.
Okay.
Or am I confused? Because
Okay.
there's nothing on the Peeragogy project calendar currently.
Yeah, but if I can well believe it. It could have been that.
That
But
would
I
probably
think
be the worst day of the week for me.
okay, let's not do it then.
It
Well,
tends to fill up with home.
I had thought about a morning time, which will include more European and some Asian
If it's
colleagues.
very early, it could, yeah.
If it's early, yeah.
But I think we better dial that back a notch because it's because we're still outlining it. I don't think we're ready to jump in with a new session.
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
penciled it in February, but
Yeah.
certainly doesn't have to be then.
Yeah, it says here. So what I see on the spreadsheet here, I'll screen share it because I said, morally speaking, someone should do that. It's so awesome. I don't see why we don't just do it all the time. There it is. So yeah, it says here set up accelerator sessions. It doesn't say run them though. It just says accelerators for IMNI, Planet Math, Peeragogy business model, etc. So I think we're still defining what that is, and I think we should move that.
Mhm.
Let's move it right now. Look, you can double click. I'm going to move it to December 16th. So this isn't a deadline. It's a suggestion, but I'm also moving it down. How can I move this? Come on, move. Darn you.
If I ever put up a date and people say think of it as a deadline, please don't, because I do that in IPNI a lot, and people say I can't. Well, you never weighed in on whether it worked for you or not. It's just up there. It's not like written in stone. So.
But let's set it up mid December, and I think we'll give ourselves a bit more time to percolate out and see what that even means.
Mm-hmm.
As today, I mean, until today we were thinking it would be according to a certain schedule. So in mid December we may be thinking completely different from that. Probably already we are. So.
Okay, so should I kill the broadcast?
Oh well, one more second because I want to broadcast to the world. Let's see what else is going on. Next is Peeragogy domain switch, ideally soon. Version 3, Indiegogo. All of those are very optimistic objectives for this month. But Peeragogy easy, but these are easy. So we could do the easy things. Launch Indiegogo to sell 180 books. We can do that. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
I would like to get some concentrated Peeragogy input on the Indiegogo. I think Charlie's overwhelmed as the kind of point person on it.
Yeah, maybe we should set up a weekend.
And I did get the printing bill for the 200 copies.
So it's time to start selling them for sure. I would like to buy a couple copies, Charlotte. I want to send one to the folks in Glasgow. So
why don't you just have them printed in
Glasgow?
Yeah.
Or wherever. Yeah, I'll ask. Maybe I'll ask around.
Espresso book machine.
Yeah. Do you think it's cheaper to print it than it is to pay for postage? I don't know. Anyway, all right. I'm going to kill the broadcast before I say.
Depends how many people.
Bye everybody. Bye, the rest of the world. No more dumb things for me.